So once again, welcome and thank you all for taking the time to join us tonight. My name is Kelly Coleman and I'm the Director of Recruitment and Marketing for the Medical School for International Health at Ben-Gurion University. What we're going to do is I'm going to go over a brief presentation with some information about the school, get into a little bit about the curriculum, what alumni do after they graduate, talk about social life on campus, all things like that, and then talk a little bit about the admissions process, and then I will open it up for Q&A. So if you have a question, you can hold it till the end if you like, and then you can type it in the chat box, and I'll address questions at that point. So once again, my name is Kelly Coleman. I'm the Director of Recruitment and Marketing for the Medical School for International Health. I am based in New York City, where our admissions and elective office is located. So MSIH is a unique medical school. It was founded over 20 years ago by two physicians who really noticed that the world was changing. People were migrating more than ever before, and with that, diseases were migrating faster than ever before, as we saw in 2020. And additionally, physicians and healthcare providers were encountering a much more diverse patient population than they were treating ever before. So what is global health exactly? Why was this school founded? Global health is really the intersection of public health, international health, and medicine. So global health focuses not just on individual curative healthcare, but also on preventative healthcare, similar to public health in that aspect. It's also a little different than international health because international health really concerns itself with health outside of one's own country, whereas global health really concerns itself with citizens worldwide, whether that's within your own country or across the globe. So having an MD degree with a focus on global health really prepares you to treat that diverse patient population that I talked about before, and also provides you with exposure to diseases that once were localized, but now travel quickly across the globe. So this is a little bit about why study global health. I just mentioned some of those reasons, but also to have a background in a whole bunch of different disciplines, not just the science behind medicine, but all the other factors that impact the health of individuals and populations. So that may be social determinants of health, studying epidemiology, taking a sociology course in medicine, or ethics courses, things like that. So that you become a medical practitioner really attuned to social justice issues and how they manifest themselves in healthcare. You become a physician who can work with both sufficiently served and underserved populations. And as I mentioned before, work with diverse communities wherever they may exist around the globe, whether they're in your neighborhood or on a continent away. So a little bit about Ben-Gurion University. MSIH is one of the two medical schools at Ben-Gurion University. Ben-Gurion University has two medical schools. As I said, we were founded over 20 years ago. At that time, we were founded by a physician at Columbia University. They already had their own medical school. Ben-Gurion University had its own medical school, but they felt there really needed to be a medical school that focused on global health. So they founded MSIH at Ben-Gurion University in Israel. So Ben-Gurion University is located in Beersheba. It is rated #1 for student experience in Israel. It's a really vibrant campus with over 20,000 students in a big city in Israel. A lot going on both in the city around it as well as on campus. But at the same time, the Medical School for International Health is a small school within that big university. So we enroll about 35 students each year. So you get that small, close-knit feel, but you also have all the resources and social things that go on in a big university. So we like to say an MSIH doctor is more than just a white coat. And what do we mean by that? I alluded to it before, really. We train our physicians not just on the science behind medicine, but on all of the other things that can impact the health of individuals and populations, whether they be cultural, economic, political, environmental factors, etc. So our students really learn to be skilled physicians who can work with diverse communities locally or globally. So a little bit more now about the specific curriculum at the Medical School for International Health. MSIH is an MD program, so graduates do earn an MD degree. It is an English language track at Ben-Gurion University in Israel. It is a North American style medical school, so all students enrolling at MSIH must have at least a bachelor's degree before coming to MSIH. The first 3 years of instruction take place in Israel at Ben-Gurion University. And then the fourth year we'll talk about, there's a lot of different options for the fourth year. Hebrew instruction is included. As I mentioned before, the classes are in English. but we do have some students who speak Hebrew and we have some that don't speak Hebrew. So we include Hebrew instruction into the curriculum. The classes are leveled so that students who come in already speaking Hebrew, they're going to focus more on medical terminology, while somebody who doesn't speak English is just going to learn how to interact with a patient, maybe take a patient history, interact, basic questions in Hebrew so that they can interact on a more daily basis, not just within the community, but as I said, eventually in those clinical settings. Year 1 and year 2 are very similar to the core curriculum you'll find at most medical schools, focusing on the basic science courses and body systems. So the first year you'll be taking classes such as anatomy, biochemistry, things like that, microbiology, similar to what you might have taken in undergrad, but at a higher level now. In the second year, you're going to connect all those basic sciences into body systems. So the cardiovascular system, the neurological system. What we do that's a little different in those first 2 years is we do integrate global health into both of those years. So students begin with a year-long introduction to global health that's taught by a medical anthropologist. So it's a really interesting course. And then in years 1 and year 2, students take global health modules, which are really the equivalent of electives. Each semester they get to pick a global health module, which is something they may be interested in. It can be medicine and society, racism in medicine, neglected tropical diseases, refugee health, sociology in medicine, mindfulness in medicine, a whole bunch of different courses. And they pick one of those each semester for the first 2 years. There are some clinical days in the first and second year, but primarily those 2 years are more classroom based. At the end of year 2, students are prepared to take the USMLE Step 1. Test prep is integrated into the curriculum and students are given study time to prepare for those exams. And our students historically perform very well on the USMLE Step 1. At the end of the 4 years, students earn an MD degree as well as a global health certificate. So year 3 and year 4 are more clinical based. They're almost entirely clinical based for that matter. Year 3, the clinical rotations are done for the most part at Soroka University Medical Center, which is right on campus there, and they're done alongside also the Israeli medical school students as well. Soroka University Medical Center serves the entire Negev region, so you can see some of the statistics there, but it's a really state-of-the-art hospital. But where it's located is a very diverse area of Israel. So in Beersheba, there's a lot of people who speak Hebrew, but there's also a large population that speaks Arabic or speaks Russian or speaks a variety of North African dialects. There's a huge nomadic Bedouin population, huge Russian immigrant population. There's a big refugee center there, so a lot of refugees coming in from Africa, etc. So students really on a daily basis treat patients from all different cultural backgrounds who speak a variety of different languages. So yes, you're at a state-of-the-art hospital, but you're treating a very diverse and sometimes very underserved population at Soroka University Medical Center. Also in year 3, we again integrate, not only are you treating that diverse patient population and getting global health that way, but we also integrate cross-cultural communications workshops, examining things like inherent bias and things like that to make you become a more culturally competent physician. And that's really a journey that you're going to go on for the rest of your life, but it's one aspect of getting you there to be a more culturally competent physician. Year 4, students really have options. They can do their clinical work in Israel, or they can do it in the United States and Canada. The vast majority of our students do choose to come back to North America for residency, so they should complete their clinical electives in the United States and Canada. We have arrangements with Columbia Irving Medical Center, which, as I said, we were founded with Columbia, also Hofstra, the Mayo Clinic, Mount Sinai, the University of Tennessee. So a lot of students do their electives there, but they can also do them anywhere throughout North America. And we have electives coordinators based both in Israel and in New York who really guide students through that process. There is also the option, if a student wants to complete residency in Israel, they can stay and do their 4th year clinical electives in Israel. Something to note too, at this point in the 4th year, students will take their Step 2 exam and they're going on their residency interviews. So it really works well that they are in the States doing their clinical work in that 4th year, if they plan on doing residency there, so they can go on those residency interviews. Our students get a lot of support when it comes to residency planning and elective planning in that 4th year from both sides of the Atlantic. From physicians who are advisors in Israel, the director and the assistant director of our program both went to medical school here in the States. And then the director of our North American school went to school in Israel, and she's a physician at Columbia, so she does advising for them too. The students, we really do a very good job supporting our students throughout the 4 years that they're with us. So the second part of the 4th year is really a unique experience. It's the Global Health Clinical Clerkship. So these are clerkships where the students get to go work in an underserved population in a very different clinical setting than they may be used to. Some of the sites they've done them in the past are India, Nepal, Sri Lanka. India actually has 3 sites: Ghana, Canada, Mexico, Peru, and Ethiopia. Ethiopia and Ghana are exchange programs, so some students from those sites will come to MSIH and do some clinical work there as well. But the students get to pick where they want to go, and it's a 2-month clinical rotation. The picture there is actually from India. I think that's Christian Medical College in India. That's one of the sites, as I mentioned, in India. But students really have their choice of where they want to go. They usually get their top choice. Sometimes it's the second choice, but for the most part, they get one of their top choices. And they get to see how healthcare is provided by very competent physicians who are able to provide quality care despite the limited resources they have. Our students work alongside the medical school students in these different settings, and really just see a different aspect of healthcare and really see, what happens in different countries when it comes to providing healthcare with limited resources. So here's a little more information as to what students do after they graduate from us. This is the US Residency Match for the past, I think it's 3 or 4 years. You can see students match in a variety of different specialties. Many of our students choose to go into primary care related fields, and I use that term loosely to include family medicine, internal medicine, pediatrics, emergency medicine, general surgery. But then there's also ones that specialize, and you can see ophthalmology, psychiatry, radiology, anesthesiology, etc. And there's just a sampling of some of the places that the students have done residency in, but they really do them all over the US for the most part. Some do them in Canada as well, but a lot of them do them throughout the United States. So I want to talk a little bit about campus life. I know I talked a little bit about Ben-Gurion University and how it has 20,000 students, and there's a lot going on campus, and that's great for our students in terms of social things on campus. You can see some of the clubs that are on campus. Some are specific to MSIH, some are not specific to MSIH. MSIH has a very active student council. There's a lot of interest groups for different specialties students are interested in. Students do a lot with the Refugee Center. There's a big palliative care group that works at Soroka University Medical Center in volunteer capacity. There's a lot of different things. And then there's just fun things that the students do together on campus. So they really have a very vibrant campus life. And as I mentioned, we're a small, close-knit school. So we're enrolling 35 students roughly a year. The students get to know each other. They get to know the students in their class, the students in the classes above and below them. They get to know the faculty very well. And at the same time, they're in Israel, and there's a lot of time to travel and do all kinds of stuff like that. Where I'm actually going to write an article about some of the student travels. There was one that recently posted on our website, but the students really take advantage of being able to have all those experiences while still in medical school. So now our student body. So where does our student body come from? They really do come from all over the world. The vast majority come from the US and Canada, but we have students really from all over. You can see a whole host of different countries there. Some students may come directly from, say, France or the UK or South Africa and come straight to us. And then we have other students I'm thinking of off the top of my head from Ghana or from Korea that come to school in the States for undergrad and then come to MSIH. So it really varies, but it's really important to us. We're a global health medical school. And so it's great that we have a diverse student body that get to learn from not only the faculty, but really learn from each other as well. So now I'm going to pause because there's one question, and then I'm going to get into the MSIH student profile and talk about admissions as well. Okay, I'm going to come back to this question because it is actually an admissions type question. So. Okay, so first of all, applications opened yesterday. So we are now accepting applications for the entering class of 2023. Our students who are matriculating this year will begin classes August 1st, so we're very excited about that. But what type of student are we looking for at MSIH? There really is no cookie cutter MSIH student. They come from a variety of different backgrounds, both academically, socially, socioeconomically, et cetera. They come from all over, as I mentioned, but there are some things that we're looking for and some things that are really characteristic of MSIH students. So first of all, medical school is challenging, and we want to make sure that students can handle the academic rigors. We expect a student who starts with MSIH will graduate with MSIH. We don't really weed out in those first or second years. So that's something we really look at. We want students with strong academics. So here's our average MCAT scores of 509, and the average GPA of matriculated students is a 3.6. Now, those are only numbers, so keep that in mind. It's not a minimum, it's not a cutoff, those are averages. The closer you are to those averages, the more competitive your application is. But at the same time, we don't look at them in isolation. We're going to look at your chemistry score on the MCAT, but we're going to compare that to the classes you took in chemistry, and we're going to compare that to your letters of recommendation and to other things you've done on your CV. So it's really nothing in isolation. We're looking at everything as the total package. We take a very holistic approach to the admissions process. We're not just looking at a GPA, we're diving pretty deep into your transcript and seeing what classes you took. How did you do on your science classes? Any grade trends, any special circumstances that might have explained a tough semester that you had or anything like that. We're going to really read those letters of recommendation you send us. We want at least 2 of them to be academic in nature, from somebody who knows you as a student in the classroom. We're going to look at your MCAT scores, but we're going to look at the different sections. And as I said, we're going to compare that to your transcript and compare it to everything else that we have from you. So those are just averages. But again, the closer you are to the average, the more competitive your application is going to be. About a third of our students are non-science majors. It's usually, we get a lot of anthropology, psychology, sociology majors. But a lot of our students are the traditional biochemistry, anatomy and physiology type majors. So it's a mix. So we really don't have any preference. We've had econ majors, we've had religion majors, we've had peace and justice study majors. Any major is fine as long as you've taken the required prerequisite courses in terms of applying. We do look for people who are committed to volunteer work, working with underserved populations, and it doesn't have to be in a medical capacity. It could be tutoring. It could be as an EMT. It could be with Magen David Adom. It could be with a whole host of different things. But that is something that is really characteristic of MSIH students. They're committed to volunteer work. They're committed to working within their communities. An interest in global health or public health is not required. It's great if you have that interest coming in. Maybe you took a global health course and that sparked your interest in it. Maybe you took an econ course and learned about how economic disparities manifest themselves in healthcare. Maybe you did a study abroad and that got your interest in global health or public health, but you don't have to have that. But it's just something we look for along the way, but it's, again, not mandatory. Research, same thing, not mandatory. It's just something we see a lot of. A lot of our students are interested in research. They've done some research. It kind of tells us what they've done with their spare time, what they're interested in, etc. But again, not required. Probably the most common thing we see here is that commitment to volunteer work. Almost all of our students have some volunteer experience. In terms of shadowing hours or clinical hours, we don't require a set number of hours. What we're looking for is you have enough experience in a clinical setting, whether it's volunteering, whether it's as a scribe, whatever that may be, so that you can tell us and you can answer for yourself, why medicine and why specifically do you want to be a physician? So that you have a general understanding, besides just watching a physician on TV, as to what life is like as a physician and why you're going into this as your chosen career. So in terms of finances, the Medical School for International Health tuition is $39,500 per year, US dollars. All accepted students are considered for scholarships. So once you're accepted to MSIH, you are given a scholarship application that you can choose to fill out if you like. Over the past 3 years, and it might even be 4 years now, but definitely the last 3 years, all incoming students have received some sort of scholarship award. We typically do not give out full tuition scholarships or even half tuition scholarships, but we try to give all of our students some amount based on both merit and need. So there is a scholarship committee that if you apply for a scholarship, once you're accepted, you submit the scholarship application that will divide up the scholarship funds that we have available for that given year. So as I mentioned before, the application is available on our website. If you have any questions, if you want to apply now, that's great. Admissions is on a rolling basis, but we do keep the application open typically through the beginning of May. So you don't need to apply yet if you haven't taken your MCAT yet or you're not ready yet. That's fine. I suggest you try to apply by around January timeframe, but then again, we've had some great applicants later in the cycle. But it is open now, and admissions is on a rolling basis, so it does get more competitive the longer you wait to submit your application. I highly recommend you visit our website. There's a lot of really useful information there on curriculum, on social life on campus, on just about anything. You can look up, you can search on our website if you're interested in a particular specialty, where our students have done residency in that, etc. There's also some great videos there. Even if you Google MSIH YouTube, there's a great campus video. So if you haven't had a chance to go to Israel and see campus, you can see it for yourself. Somebody takes you on a walking tour of campus. Our email is there. If you have any questions, you can reach out. I will also follow up with all of you directly so that you have my email as well, should you have a question after this. And finally, I do suggest you check out our first year blogs. Our students blog, and they blog about everything from life on campus to classwork to travel to everything. So I really suggest you check them out because it's a great way to see if MSIH is the right fit for you. You can kind of see what it's like to be a student at MSIH. Gives you a little bit of a glimpse into that. So without further ado, I am going to stop sharing my screen and open it up for some questions. So just give me a second here. Let me stop sharing.